Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Editorial Analysis. In this video, we'll try to understand the important editorial from the Hindu as well as from the Indian Express. We'll look into the important aspects from the examination point of view. We'll try to understand from the DS perspective and its important relevance in the subtopic of the UPSC mains examination. So before I proceed, I'd like to tell you that I'll be discussing some of the important questions as well, which would be indeed helpful for the prelims examination. So this would be basically an MCQs questions, which will be helping you for the real examination. So before I start, I would like to tell you that we have started a complete new mock test series. In total, there will be 70 tests. You can avail this course for the CSE 2020 and you can participate in the answer writing challenge. This would be helpful for you while increasing your answer writing skills. So description में मैंने link दे दिया इन दोनों का, तो you can check that. Fine. Moving ahead. What I'll do first, I'll give you the glimpse of the editorial from the Hindu. So these are the important editorial which we'll be discussing. And this topic would be our in-depth analysis. So this I'll be discussing as an in-depth analysis. But before I start the in-depth analysis, I would tell you the brief about what exactly is there in the Hindu. So first is the scholarship and the times of populism. So this can be important for your general studies paper 2. And this can be also the subtopic that would be important for the examination would be government policies and intervention for the government in various sectors that arises from the design and implementation. So this is the editorial for the day, and it basically talks about the retaliation and the retaliation and the defense are the basic principle of the constitutional democracy. So this is more of philosophical as well, because it talks about the threat to civil liberties when it's come to the scholarship that are not the intellectual people are not contributing are large to the democratic processes. Okay, when it's come to the identifying the political problems, the problem that need to be identified, it is not being done from these scholarships. So whether the scholarship that is being provided, what would be the right approach, the emergence of the right-wing extremists in the universities, as you have seen in the Jawaharlal Nehru universities. These are also one of the apex institution in the India. So these things are entirely discussed. You can read this. Talking about the examination point of view, the only issues that can be important is the issues of appropriation of the nationalism that you can definitely must read. This can be important one, and the differential notion that is being discussed in this tutorial, something example has been quoted, that can be as also taken as an important one. Fine. And it also talks about the civic nationalism that grabs for the breath. The more the entire topic concern about the nationalism, okay, and the principle of constitutional democracy. So these can be also very important, and you can jot down some of the important points that you find relevant for the examination. So this is the one. Now second editorial that is there in the Hindu itself talks about lodestar to the steel of the economy. So this is also an important one, and this can be important for your general studies paper 3, and the subtopic would be for this one is inclusive growth and issues arising from it. Okay, so in this editorial talks about the policy that was there during the Nehru times. So Nehru visions in the economy that was discussed, and the editorial concern about that at the present context there is a huge economic slowdown and the anxiety which is coming across the country with the downfall in the economy, where the GDP rate has grown up to 5.3%. Okay, and the anticipated growth was somewhere 5.9%, and the target set by the government for the entire is $5 trillion economy. Okay, so $5 trillion economy. So again, it would be a bigger task for the government to achieve it, and to achieve this task, they have to put all their tooth and nail. Fine. So this is what is being discussed in this editorial. It talks about what other implications should be there. The recent decision by the government cutting down the corporate taxes and other stuffs. So will it be largely impacting the Indian economy? So it basically talks about the impasse of the Rao Singh. I mean, the Simba Rao time. Okay, the Rao and the Manmohan Singh was the finance minister at that point of time. So this is what is being discussed, what could be the exactly ventures from them and how they can help it out. So this is what is being discussed in this editorial. Okay, and you can also make this point like the something important point that has been also discussed is like some datas are there. So data talks about the 3.1 rural consumption. Okay, so these important data can be helpful for you, and talking about the other GDP growth rate and the projection from the other emerging like World Bank, okay, IMF. So they have projected not very well for the India's growth in the coming years. So what exactly could be the way, what possible way out would be the government for the financial year 2020 and the coming ahead, because the target set by the government to double the farmer economy, or it is something that need to be done from the bottom of the policymakers. So this is what is being discussed in this editorial, and the Singh Rao policy has been highly highlighted in this editorial. So this again can be important when you write in the examination. You can quote this during these time when India has focused on the liberalization and post globalization era, which this was a golden time for the India. मतलब this is considered to be one of the important time in the economy of the India. तो ये चीज़ें डिस्कस है, बाकी आप इसको एक बार ज़रूर पढ़ें. इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर एग्जामिनेशन पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. Right now, moving ahead, the again editorial, the second editorial talks about redirecting money from the Gulf. This is again also very important for the examination point of view, and this can help you in the general studies paper 3, where the subtopic would be effects of liberalization on the economy. So this editorial concerns that the Kerala, basically the remittances issues that is there, and talking about the Kerala has an overdose of medicine and cards, and it needs an investment in terms of job creation ventures. Okay, need to have a shift towards the job creation. Basically the entire editorial concerns about the WhatsApp advisory, where it talks about that you need to expense less on your the basic amenities of the things that can be avoided, like avoiding eating out, whatever is needed, the basic necessity to be first addressed. We should avoid the private vehicles. We could more and more use public transport. The entire concern of this editorial is saving from the remittances which is there from the non-Keralites that are resided in the Gulf countries. So what has happened, because of their lifestyle, the remittances which was being received to the Kerala has seen a downfall. The average amount which was being received is around 200 crores, 200 CR per day. Okay, so this is the amount that is being received, and Kerala is the fifth country, okay, fifth state basically, we will say, among all the countries that receive most of its remittances, okay, in India. So this is again our top one, and it also talks about the consumeristic economy. Fine, this UPSC can ask you a question in the consumeristic economy, because talking about the other downfalls when it's come to the remittances which is being received, it has seen again a downfall, that too contributing to the GDP of the India. Fine, so this is what is being discussed in this editorial. You can read this one. This is also a very important one. Moving ahead, the editorial from the Indian Express. So in this editorial it talks about, this is by Sanjay Baru, and he has discussed, I'll tell you what exactly we'll be discussing in this. We'll be discussing this one and this one. So these two can be directly avoided in this thing. Moving ahead, so seizing 100 year of promises. In this it talks about the recent Mamalapuram meeting which was being held. This can be called as the pro-Wuhan summit. Okay, so it can be called as a pro-Wuhan summit, where the basic ties between the India and China bilateral relationship was to augment in every sector, be it investment, trade, partnership, defense engagement. So these are the things which has been discussed. और ये editorial ऐसे मैंने पिछले कई बारी 2-3 editorial पे discuss किए हुए हैं, तो you can refer that as well, because the content of the editorial would be same, because this is the repetition, the recent visit which was there. तो अभी इसके कंसर्न में ऐसे editorial आएगी. और अगर बात करूँ जनरल स्टडीज के लिए, तो this can be helpful for your general studies paper 2, where bilateral regional grouping agreement involving India's and affecting interest is concerned. So it can be helpful for these topics. Okay, and this is by Sanjay Baru. थोड़ा philosophical है. What you can do, you can read this, and again the same important point, okay, because he had given a historical perspective. So what you can do, you can read the important point whichever is there, and you have to make sure that the emphasis should be on the trade partnership, the defense. Okay, so these are the core area which you need to focus upon. Fine. Now moving ahead, now the second editorial talks about time to top up. Basically it can be helpful for the general studies paper 3, where India economies and issues related to planning is there. So this editorial talks about the issues of the tomatoes, onion and potatoes that are facing an extreme volatility in the current situation, because the prices are going higher. I mean, talking about the other metropolitan cities, the price of the onion has somewhere surged to 90 rupees per kg. Okay, and talking about the potato, it is somewhere 50 to 60. It depends upon the city to city and make a difference. So this is what is being discussed, because these are some of the primary needs of the every household. Okay, so the government need to address this with a sustainable solution, which can again do not impact, because we don't want a immediate solution for a short duration. We want it to be for a sustainable period of time, and no temporary situation should be there, because every year this type of problem is faced by the entire India. Okay, so government need to have a holistic policy, regulatory measures, so that this do not impact to the lowest people who cannot afford this as well, because this is something which everyone has daily requirement is there, but they should have a price where they can afford it. So this is again a very important editorial, when you can write in the inflation point of view. There can be other aspect of it. So this is also an important one, and it also concern that the tomatoes, potatoes and onion prices, that are the three basic vegetables that face the extreme price volatility. So the government need to fund it, because what other cities, because talking about the Delhi government, so they have initiated a shuffle. There's a counter called shuffle counters, so where they used to have a subsidized price. Suppose a market price is around 70 to 90 rupees, so they will fix the price up to 50 rupees or 40 rupees per kg for the onion. So this is the subsidized by the government side. So this is an overview about both of the editorial. Now I'll be moving into the in-depth analysis of the topic, that is a tax policy that could work. So the entire editorial concerns about the tax policy for the inclusive growth. Fine. So in this we'll understand that the Indian government is trying to make its all possible efforts to raise taxes from the tax revenues, and at the present the government is missing certain targets, talking about the largely the poor the poor implementation and the poor collection from the GST. So government has again a downfall in it, and the target which was set to be achieved is not actually achieved in this. Fine. So, and it clearly the budget that it has declared the budget of the current requirement of the receipt to increase by the 25%, but that is not the case, and the first quarter increase was only 6% to the previous year. So you can see we have only achieved almost 6% of it. Fine. And again measure of it is still remaining. We are remaining on the 19% that need to be achieved. Fine. So this is what the entire concern of this editorial is. Now, consequences of increasing GST rate. What are the adverse impact? So what has happened, that the measure had it should not take the form and the tax terrorism, because something is that the GST was again considered by the opponent that it is a tax terrorism, and government is prone to increase the GST rates, which aggressively, and it would be counterproductive for the slow of the economy, because this is something which is also making economic toward the slowdown, because many of the people who are the short vendors, short businessmen, they have almost shut down their businesses. So these were some of the important consequences of the increasing GST rate. Now moving ahead, I'll tell you what exactly the company is doing, why the reduction in the tax rate can be a non-compliance for the MNC, for the multinational companies. See what MNC does, they used to avoid the tax. Okay, in most of the countries they are doing the avoidance of the tax by shifting their declared cost and revenue through the transfer pricing, and this was done through the base erosion and profit shifting. So this concept is very important, and UPSC has asked in 2016, I guess 16 or 17, they have asked a prelims question in this. And matters have also got worse, because see the digital company, what they're doing, the largest of which are billions of dollars, they are making the profit, but they're not paying the taxes. What is happening, they are the sole profit makers, and they're not contributing to the country's concern where they're operating, and they're not contributing to the nation building. Fine. And IMF has estimated that around $500 billion of the year is loss, which is being lost by the countries. This is the loss. You can see the amount, the figure is a huge one. Fine. Now moving ahead, the OECD and BEPS. Okay, so base shift erosion, what exactly is doing the OECD? This is an initiative by the OECD, and it attempts that to include the डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज टू द इंक्लूसिव प्रोसेस. पूरी कोशिश है OECD की BPS के थ्रू कि जो डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज हैं उनको भी इंक्लूड किया जाए इन द इंक्लूसिव प्रोसेस. Okay, and so far this has made benefits only to the few countries, and it was limited to the, because see why it was limited, because the जो इसकी जो rules हैं, the regulation is arm length. Okay, the principle is arm length for treating the subsidiary as a separate entity. Fine. Now what we have to do, the MNC that is actually functioning, it should be treated as a way for the tax purposes. तो जो भी companies हैं जो actually functions कर रही हैं, that should be treated as a tax purposes. See, we cannot exempt everything, because unless that has been contributed from the company side, the entire process for the growth is not possible. And the total profit that is being made by the multinational companies, the total global profit that are made, it should be calculated and appropriated across the country. Fine, you cannot exempt it. And the OECD BAPS initiative will definitely, they will have a meeting on 19th October, and they will set down certain proposal. This is for the first time they will be considering the possibility of unilateral taxation. So this would be again important one. This would be again important one, and it will help you. It will help basically people to get into the mainstream line. So UPSC can ask you what exactly is the unilateral taxation. Fine. Now moving ahead. Key concern, what are the important key concern could be there? So the tax compliances by the MNC again create an unevenness. Okay, because what is happening, because the domestic companies that are paying the taxes, they are avoiding, as I told you, because of the cutting of the taxes from the government, and that too from the company side, they are also not having a compliances. So this is again a big concern, because हमें ये ज़रूरत है कि हम उनको कैसे compliance कराएं और उनको कोशिश करें कि वो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा पैसे नेशनल बिल्डिंग की तरफ भी दें, अपनी contribution को दें, right? And this cannot, there has no economic justification. Fine. And since the profit can net away the value and the cost of the internet, and the formula that is used to distribute the profit is also not very accurate, so we need to work upon on the distribution of the tax profit as well. And the government is currently ineffective in battling both economic slowdown. Okay, so what government is trying to do, they would be effectively battling with both economics and the slowdown. So this is also would be an important measure कि government किस तरह से इस ineffective को आराम से हैंडल करे, और जो इकोनॉमिक स्लो डाउन है, एंड दे कैन डिक्लाइन द डिफरेंसेस दैट जो डिक्लाइनिंग टैक्स रेवेन्यूज है, दैट कैन अगेन बी एन इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट, एंड इट कुड बी अ क्रूशियल पॉइंट टू improve. Fine, it would be opportunity for the government to collect the taxes from this side. Fine, this was the key concern. Now moving ahead, what would be the way forward? See, the important measures that I could tell you would be possibly to get more and more revenues from the government. Okay, because government should have a policy where they cannot leave only by the tax cut, because exemption in the tax cut would definitely lead to the other emerging consequences. The multinational company have to actually pay a fair share of taxes. This is again a very important point. They need to pay the taxes, and regulatory measure need to be strengthened, because we want a policy, we want to be a watchdog, a regulatory measure that could comply with the MNC tax policy. Okay, and the important point would be that the government of India have to look into the issue seriously, because the clear position of the OECD meeting would be there, because a unilateral tax should be there that should be imposed across the globe. Fine, and in the globalized environment, it is important for the government to innovate and understand the business need, and to serve the right investment at first in the right policies. So this would be the important forward, way forward that you can definitely write in the examination, and indeed this will be helpful for the conclusion part. So this was there. Now moving ahead, the important questions of the day. But before I start the question, I would like to tell you that we have a official Telegram channel called FT Plus official Telegram channel, where you can get the important notifications about the examination, important PDF, everything is there. So do subscribe that, and you can subscribe our YouTube channel also, where you can get the important notification about the whenever we upload any of the important videos for you. So do like this video as well. So the important question for the day. So this is the previous question, where the first question is from the Indian polity, and the power of the Supreme Court of the India has to decide the dispute between the center and the states fall under which among the following? Is it the advisory jurisdiction, appellate jurisdiction, original jurisdiction, and read jurisdiction? So I think this is the easy one, and already UP has asked you, so they can interchange it with any of the point. So whatever you feel is the correct, do comment. I ask you write your answer in the comment of this video, so that I could come to know how many of you are participating. Now the second question is again from the Indian polity. So the power to increase the number of judges in the Supreme Court is vested with the President of India, the Parliament of India, Chief Justice of India, and Law Commission of India. This is again a confusing one. Many of 10 people who attempted that year has again come across the confusion that whether it's the Parliament, President, or which among these. Okay, so I think now it become easy for you. So whatever you feel is the correct answer, do comment in the video of this. And those of you who want to get the correct answer, they can refer to the description of this video where I have provided the correct answer as well. Fine. So this was the editorial analysis for the day. Do not forget to like, share and subscribe this video. And I sincerely thank you for listening. We'll meet in the next video with some of the important editorial for the examination. Thank you so much for listening.
I'm an icon, man. I'm a girl about a 10. I should fuck her in a Benz.